Sarah Chen had always thought Marcus Thompson was the most unremarkable man she'd ever met. He worked in the accounting department 3 floors below her engineering lab, always carrying the same brown lunch bag and wearing shirts that looked like they came from a discount store. When they rode the elevator together, he never made small talk. He just stood there, hands clasped behind his back, staring at the floor numbers as they lit up one by one. The only reason she knew his name was because of the coffee incident 6 months ago. She'd been rushing to a meeting, juggling her tablet and a steaming cup of coffee, when the elevator lurched unexpectedly. The coffee went flying, splashing across his plain white shirt. Most people would have been angry or at least annoyed, but Marcus had simply looked down at the brown stain spreading across his chest and smiled. "Don't worry about it," he'd said in a voice so calm it was almost unsettling. "These things happen." He'd even helped her clean up the spilled coffee from the elevator floor, using tissues from his pocket without being asked. After that, Sarah found herself noticing him more often. Not because she was interested romantically, but because there was something oddly peaceful about him. In a building full of stressed-out engineers, demanding executives and anxious interns, Marcus moved through the halls, like he was walking through a quiet garden. Her co-workers at Nexus Technologies often joked about the mystery man from accounting. Nobody seemed to know much about him beyond his work. He arrived at exactly 8:30 every morning, ate lunch alone in the cafeteria while reading old paperback books, and left at 5 o'clock sharp. No office parties, no after-work drinks, no small talk by the water cooler. "I heard he doesn't even have social media," Jessica from the marketing team had whispered during one of their Friday lunch gatherings. Like, who doesn't have at least a LinkedIn profile these days? Sarah had defended him then, though she wasn't sure why. Maybe he just values his privacy. Not everyone needs to share their whole life online. But privately, she wondered about Marcus Thompson. There was something about the way he carried himself that didn't quite match his ordinary appearance. His posture was too straight, his movements too precise. When he walked, his feet barely made a sound on the office carpet. And his eyes, the few times she'd caught him looking directly at someone, seemed to take in everything with an intensity that made her slightly uncomfortable. The morning everything changed started like any other. Sarah was running late because of a problem with the quantum processor prototype she'd been working on for months. The device was supposed to revolutionize computer processing speeds, but it kept overheating during stress tests. She rushed into the elevator on the 15th floor, clutching her coffee and muttering under her breath about thermal dissipation rates. Marcus was already inside, standing in his usual spot near the back corner. He nodded politely when she entered, then returned his attention to the small paperback book in his hands. Sarah glanced at the cover and saw it was something about ancient military history. Definitely not light reading. The elevator began its descent, passing the 14th floor, then the 13th. Sarah was mentally reviewing her presentation for the morning meeting when the building's emergency lights suddenly flickered on, bathing everything in harsh red illumination. "Attention all personnel," a voice crackled through the intercom system. "This is not a drill. The building is under lockdown. Please remain calm and follow emergency protocols." Sarah's coffee cup slipped from her hand, but before it could hit the floor, Marcus caught it smoothly without even looking up from his book. He handed it back to her as if catching falling objects was something he did every day. "What's happening?" Sarah asked, her voice shaking slightly. Marcus closed his book and looked at her for the first time with complete attention. His gray eyes were steady and completely calm. "I'm not sure yet, but whatever it is, we'll handle it." The elevator shuddered to a stop between the 10th and 11th floors. The normal lighting went out completely, leaving only the red emergency illumination. Through the elevator's small window, Sarah could see into the hallway of the 10th floor. It was empty, but something was wrong. The office lights were flickering randomly, and she could hear a strange humming sound that seemed to vibrate through the building's structure. "The emergency phone," Sarah said, pointing to the red phone mounted near the control panel. She picked up the receiver, but instead of a dial tone, there was only static mixed with what sounded like voices speaking in a language she didn't recognize. Marcus stood up and moved to the elevator doors. He placed his hands flat against them and seemed to be listening to something Sarah couldn't hear. His entire demeanor had changed. The mild-mannered accountant was gone, replaced by someone who radiated a quiet, dangerous competence. "Marcus, what are you doing?" "Trying to understand what we're dealing with," he said without turning around. "The electromagnetic signature is wrong. This isn't a normal power failure or security drill. Sarah stared at him. Electromagnetic signature? You're an accountant. How do you know about electromagnetic signatures? He turned to face her, and for a moment she saw something flicker across his features. It was gone so quickly she almost thought she'd imagined it, but it looked like regret. Sarah, I need you to listen to me very carefully. In about 30 seconds, something is going to happen that will seem impossible. When it does, I need you to stay calm and do exactly what I tell you. Can you do that? Before she could answer, the humming sound grew louder. The elevator began to vibrate, and the red emergency light started flashing in a rapid, rhythmic pattern. Through the small window, Sarah saw something that made her mind struggle to process what she was seeing. The hallway of the 10th floor was no longer empty. Figures in metallic suits were moving through it with purpose and coordination. They carried devices that glowed with an eerie blue light. And when one of them turned toward the elevator, Sarah saw that its face wasn't human. The features were too angular, the eyes too large and dark. They're not from here, Marcus said quietly, confirming what Sarah's rational mind was refusing to accept. And they're not here for a friendly visit. The elevator's emergency phone began emitting a high-pitched whine that hurt Sarah's ears. The metal doors started to glow with heat, and she realized that whatever those creatures were doing, they were trying to cut their way into the elevator. Marcus rolled up his sleeves, revealing forearms that were far more muscled than his loose shirts had suggested. He looked at Sarah one more time, and she saw an apology in his eyes. I'm sorry you have to see this, he said, but I can't let them hurt you. The elevator doors began to glow cherry red as the alien cutting tools worked through the metal. Sarah pressed herself against the back wall, her mind reeling from what she'd seen in the hallway. The creatures moved with a purpose that was both alien and terrifyingly efficient. Marcus stood facing the doors, his posture completely relaxed despite the danger. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out what looked like an ordinary pen. With a quick twist of his wrist, the pen extended into something that definitely wasn't meant for writing. It was sleek, metallic, and hummed with barely contained energy. Marcus, what is that? Sarah whispered. Emergency protocol, he replied without taking his eyes off the doors. Standard issue for field operatives. Field operatives? You're an accountant. The cutting stopped. For a moment, there was complete silence except for the building's emergency alarm echoing faintly through the elevator shaft. Then the doors exploded inward with a shower of sparks and molten metal. 3 figures in metallic suits stepped through the smoking opening. Up close, Sarah could see that they weren't wearing suits at all. The metallic appearance was their actual skin, gleaming like polished chrome under the red emergency lights. Their faces were humanoid but wrong, with features that seemed carved from metal and eyes that glowed with an inner blue fire. The lead creature raised one arm, and Sarah saw that what she'd thought was a handheld device was actually part of its body. The weapon grew from its forearm like a living extension, crackling with energy that made the air smell like ozone. Marcus moved. It wasn't like anything Sarah had ever seen before. One moment he was standing still, and the next he was a blur of motion that seemed to defy physics. He crossed the small elevator space faster than her eyes could follow, his improvised weapon trailing streams of light as it cut through the air. The first alien tried to track his movement, but Marcus was already behind it. His weapon sliced through the creature's neck with surgical precision. Instead of blood, sparks cascaded from the wound, and the alien collapsed with a sound like breaking glass. The second creature spun toward Marcus, its arm weapon charging with a whine that hurt Sarah's ears. Marcus dropped to one knee, letting the energy blast pass over his head, then surged upward. His fist connected with the alien's torso, and Sarah heard the sound of metal crumpling. The creature flew backward out of the elevator, crashing into the hallway wall hard enough to leave a dent in the drywall. The third alien had learned from its companion's mistakes. Instead of trying to shoot Marcus directly, it aimed at Sarah. Time seemed to slow down as the blue energy built up in the creature's weapon. Sarah saw her death approaching and found herself strangely calm about it. At least now she knew why Marcus had seemed so unusual. He wasn't an ordinary man at all. But Marcus wasn't done moving. He threw his weapon with perfect accuracy, and it struck the alien's arm just as the energy discharge began. The shot went wild, blasting a hole in the elevator's ceiling instead of Sarah's chest. Before the creature could recover, Marcus had crossed the distance between them and grabbed it by what passed for its throat. Who sent you? Marcus asked in a voice that was nothing like the mild accountant Sarah thought she knew. This voice carried authority and the promise of violence. The alien made a sound that might have been words, but in a language that hurt to hear. Marcus tightened his grip and the creature's glow began to dim. "English," Marcus said. "I know you can speak it." "The collective," the alien rasped, its voice like metal scraping against stone. "We know what you are, Guardian. Your hiding is finished. How many ships? Enough to glass this world clean." Marcus's expression didn't change, but Sarah saw his jaw tighten slightly. "Wrong answer." He did something with his hand and the alien simply stopped functioning. The blue glow in its eyes faded, and it collapsed like a puppet with its strings cut. Sarah stared at the three motionless forms on the elevator floor. Her mind was struggling to process what she'd just witnessed. The mild-mannered accountant she'd known for months had just killed 3 alien invaders with the casual efficiency of someone swatting flies. "Sarah." Marcus turned to face her, and she saw that his gray eyes now held flecks of gold that definitely hadn't been there before. "We need to move. There will be more, and this building isn't safe anymore." "What are you?" she asked, surprised by how steady her own voice sounded. "Complicated question. Short answer, I'm human, but not the kind you're used to." He retrieved his weapon from where it had embedded itself in the elevator wall and collapsed it back into pen form. Longer answer will have to wait. Right now we need to get to the building's communication center. Why? Because those things called me a guardian, which means they know more about human defenses than they should. If they've compromised our early warning systems, Earth's orbital defense grid is probably already down. Sarah looked at the dead aliens, then back at Marcus. "You're talking about this like it's not the first time." "It's not." Marcus stepped over the alien bodies and looked out into the hallway. "Clear for now, but that won't last long. The collective scouts always travel in larger groups." "The collective?" Think of them as the galaxy's least popular neighborhood watch committee. Except instead of enforcing noise ordinances, they eliminate species they consider threats to cosmic stability. Marcus moved into the hallway with careful, precise steps. "Humans made the list about 50 years ago." Sarah followed him, her mind reeling. 50 years ago. But there's been no alien contact, no invasions, no... Officially, no. Marcus stopped at a maintenance panel and did something that made it open with a soft click. "Unofficially, there's been a quiet war going on since before you were born. Most humans don't know about it because most humans don't need to know about it." Inside the maintenance panel was equipment that definitely hadn't been installed by the building's contractors. Screens and devices that looked more advanced than anything Sarah had seen in her engineering lab glowed softly in the dark space. "Guardian Network emergency protocols activated," Marcus said to the equipment. "This is Agent 77 Alpha. Building compromise confirmed. Requesting immediate tactical support and civilian evacuation authorization." A voice responded from the panel, clear despite having no visible speaker. "Agent 77 Alpha, your identity is confirmed. Tactical support is unavailable. All Guardian units are currently engaged. Civilian evacuation is authorized at your discretion." Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the building's failing climate control. All Guardian units are currently engaged? How many of these invasions are happening? Marcus closed the panel and looked at her with an expression that mixed regret with determination. "All of them, Sarah. This isn't a probe or a limited strike. The collective is making their final move." The building shook around them, and through the windows at the end of the hallway, Sarah could see flashes of light in the sky that definitely weren't lightning. The sounds of combat echoed from other floors, mixing human shouts with the alien weapon discharges she'd heard in the elevator. "What do we do?" she asked. Marcus checked his watch, which Sarah now noticed had way too many functions for a normal timepiece. "We survive the next few hours. Then we figure out how to save the world." The stairwell was a nightmare of emergency lighting and echoing sounds. As they descended, Sarah could hear the battle raging throughout the building. Weapon fire, shouts in multiple languages, and the distinctive sound of the aliens' energy weapons created a symphony of chaos that seemed to come from every direction. Marcus moved ahead of her with the fluid grace of someone who had done this before. He paused at each landing, listening intently before signaling her to continue. His entire demeanor had transformed so completely that Sarah found it hard to believe this was the same man who had sat quietly in the elevator just 20 minutes ago. "How long have you been watching me?" Sarah asked as they reached the 12th floor landing. 2 years, 4 months, 3 days, Marcus replied without hesitation. Since you started working on the quantum processor project, Sarah stopped moving. You've been spying on me for over 2 years? Marcus turned to face her, and she saw something that looked like genuine remorse in his expression. Not spying, protecting. Your research was getting close to something the collective considers dangerous. My research? I'm working on faster computers, not weapons. Quantum processing doesn't just make computers faster, Sarah. In the right hands, it makes them capable of calculations that can predict and manipulate probability itself. The collective has seen species use similar technology to rewrite the fundamental laws of physics in localized areas. The building shook again, more violently this time. Through the stairwell windows, Sarah could see aircraft moving through the sky that definitely weren't human in design. They looked like metal jellyfish, flowing through the air with impossible grace while unleashing streams of energy at targets below. They're not just attacking this building, she realized. No, this is a full-scale invasion. The building was hit because of your research, but they're targeting every major population center on the planet. Marcus resumed moving down the stairs, his pace faster now. The Guardian Network has been preparing for this day for 50 years, but we always hoped it wouldn't come. What exactly is the Guardian Network? Humans who were selected and trained to defend Earth against threats that normal military forces couldn't handle. We've been fighting the collective's advanced scouts for decades, keeping them from gathering too much intelligence about our capabilities. They reached the 10th floor, and Marcus peered through the small window in the stairwell door. Sarah looked over his shoulder and saw a scene that belonged in a nightmare. The office floor had been transformed into a battlefield. Desks were overturned and burning, windows were blown out, and alien creatures moved through the wreckage with predatory efficiency. But they weren't alone. 3 humans were fighting back with weapons and equipment that Sarah had never seen before. They moved with the same impossible speed and precision that Marcus had displayed in the elevator, turning what should have been a massacre into an actual battle. Other Guardians? Sarah asked. Jenkins from IT, Morrison from Legal, and Davis from Maintenance, Marcus confirmed. We've all been here watching and waiting. How many of you are there in the building? We're 7. I've lost contact with 3 of them. Marcus's voice remained steady, but Sarah caught the pain underneath. The collective targeted Guardian installations worldwide. They've been planning this for a long time. One of the aliens in the office noticed them through the window. It raised its weapon, but Marcus was already moving, pulling Sarah away from the door just as energy blasted through the reinforced glass. Stairwell compromised, Marcus said into his watch. Moving to alternate route. Roger, 7-7 Alpha, came the reply. Guardian Command is falling back to Omega protocols. You are cleared for unrestricted engagement. Sarah saw Marcus's expression change. Whatever Omega protocols meant, it wasn't good news. What does that mean? She asked as they continued down the stairs at a near run. It means we've lost the war, Marcus said quietly. Omega protocols are the last resort. When conventional Guardian operations fail, we activate technology that we've been hiding from both the collective and our own people. They reached the 8th floor, and Marcus suddenly stopped. He pressed himself against the wall and motioned for Sarah to do the same. Through the concrete and steel, she could hear something that made her skin crawl. It sounded like metal grinding against metal, but with an organic rhythm that suggested it was alive. Harvester, Marcus whispered. They don't usually deploy those until after resistance is broken. What's a harvester? Collective technology that processes biological matter into something they can use. They're probably converting captured humans into computational substrate for their ship computers. Sarah felt sick. They're turning people into computers? The collective doesn't think in terms of individual consciousness the way we do. To them, human neural tissue is just another resource to be optimized and utilized. The grinding sound grew louder, and the building structure groaned around them. Whatever was happening on the 8th floor was causing serious structural damage. Marcus made a decision. Instead of continuing down the stairs, he led Sarah to the emergency exit that connected to the building's external fire escape. The metal door was locked, but Marcus placed his hand on what looked like a normal handle, and it opened with a soft click. The fire escape was a relief after the claustrophobic stairwell, but it also exposed them to the full scope of what was happening to the city. The sky was filled with collective ships, their organic curves making them look like sea creatures swimming through the air. Energy beams lanced between them and points on the ground, creating a light show that would have been beautiful if it wasn't so deadly. "How long do we have?" Sarah asked, watching a building several blocks away collapse under concentrated fire. "Depends on how fast our backup arrives," Marcus said, but his tone suggested he wasn't optimistic. "What backup?" Marcus pointed upward, beyond the alien ships to where the stars should have been visible. Instead, Sarah saw flickers of light that pulsed with too much regularity to be natural. "Orbital defense platforms. We've had them in place for 30 years, disguised as defunct satellites and space debris. The problem is that there aren't many of them, and the collective brought a lot of ships." As if summoned by his words, a lance of brilliant white light stabbed down from space, striking one of the jellyfish-shaped alien vessels. The ship crumpled like paper and fell from the sky, crashing into the river several miles away. "One down," Marcus said with satisfaction. "About 400 to go." The remaining alien ships responded to the attack by changing their formation. Instead of spreading out across the city, they began clustering together into tight groups that moved with synchronized precision. "That's not good," Marcus muttered. "Why not?" "Because now they're going to stop playing around." The clustered ships began to glow, their metallic surfaces building up energy that made the air itself seem to vibrate. Sarah realized she was watching them prepare for something that would make their current attacks look like gentle rain. "We need to get underground," Marcus said, urgency finally creeping into his voice. "Right now." They made it to the building's parking garage just as the collective ships began their coordinated bombardment. The concrete structure shook with each impact, dust and debris falling from the ceiling like deadly snow. Sarah pressed herself against a concrete pillar and watched Marcus work at what appeared to be a normal maintenance panel. "Please tell me there's another secret Guardian facility down here," she said, trying to keep the fear out of her voice. "Better." Marcus's fingers moved across controls that definitely hadn't been installed by the building's contractors. "Emergency bunker. Every Guardian installation has one, rated to survive everything up to direct nuclear strikes." A section of the concrete wall slid aside, revealing a passage that led deeper underground. Emergency lighting activated automatically, casting everything in a pale blue glow that was somehow more comforting than the red lights upstairs. "How deep does this go?" Sarah asked as they descended a staircase that seemed to be carved directly from bedrock. "About 200 feet, deep enough to survive what's about to happen up there." The bombardment intensified above them, and Sarah could feel the impacts through the stone around them. The collective wasn't just attacking the building anymore. They were systematically destroying entire city blocks. The staircase ended at a heavy door that looked like it belonged on a bank vault. Marcus placed his palm on a scanner, and the door opened with a soft hiss of equalized pressure. The space beyond was larger than Sarah had expected, easily the size of a basketball court. The walls were lined with equipment that glowed with soft blue and green lights, and the air had the clean, filtered quality of an advanced life support system. It was clearly designed to keep people alive for an extended period. "How long have these bunkers existed?" Sarah asked, running her fingers along a panel covered with displays showing data from around the world. "Since the first collective scouts arrived in 1975, Marcus said, settling into a chair that faced a wall of monitors. "The Guardian program started as a response to their initial probes. We've been preparing for this invasion for most of my lifetime." Sarah looked at him with new understanding. "How old are you, Marcus?" "Older than I look. Guardian enhancement includes life extension technology. I was recruited when I was 22. That was 43 years ago." The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. Marcus appeared to be in his early 30s, but he was actually in his mid-60s. How much of what she thought she knew about the world was completely wrong? The monitors around them flickered to life, showing satellite feeds from around the globe. The images were devastating. Major cities on every continent were under attack by collective forces. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, all of them were burning under alien assault. But not all the news was bad. In several locations, Sarah could see human forces fighting back with technology that was clearly more advanced than anything she'd seen in civilian applications. Aircraft that moved too fast for normal engines, ground vehicles that shrugged off alien energy weapons, and soldiers who moved with the same enhanced speed and precision that Marcus had displayed. "The Guardian network is bigger than I thought," Sarah observed. "We had to be. The collective has been harvesting worlds for thousands of years. They don't make mistakes, and they don't underestimate opponents twice." Marcus pulled up a tactical display that showed the orbital battle raging overhead. The problem is that we've been forced to reveal ourselves. Win or lose, the secret is out. Sarah studied the display, using her engineering background to interpret the data. The orbital platforms are holding their own, for now. But look at this. Marcus highlighted a section of the tactical map that showed space beyond Earth's immediate orbit. Collective reinforcements are already in the solar system. 3 more battle fleets, each one larger than the force that's currently attacking us. When will they arrive? 18 hours, assuming they maintain current acceleration. The weight of that statement settled on Sarah like a physical burden. Even if humanity somehow managed to repel the current attack, they would face an even larger force before they had time to recover. "What are our chances?" she asked. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, studying the tactical displays with the intensity of someone looking for a solution that might not exist. Honestly, not good. The Guardian network was designed to fight scouts and advance forces, not a full invasion fleet. We've bought Earth 50 years of preparation time, but it might not be enough, one of the monitors chimed, and a new display appeared showing a global map with thousands of small lights scattered across every continent. As Sarah watched, many of the lights began to change color from green to red. Guardian installations going offline, Marcus explained. Each light represents a facility or a team. Red means they've either been destroyed or have gone dark to avoid detection. Sarah counted quickly. There are thousands of them. There were. We recruited people from every profession, every walk of life. Scientists, soldiers, teachers, doctors, mechanics. Anyone who had the right combination of skills and psychological profile. Marcus touched a control, and the display zoomed in on their location. This building housed 7 Guardians in positions ranging from accounting to IT support. Why did you choose those jobs? Why not just create a military force? Because the collective scouts would have noticed a military buildup. But nobody pays attention to accountants and IT workers and maintenance staff. We could hide in plain sight while gathering intelligence and preparing defenses. The tactical display suddenly flashed red, and an alarm began to sound. Marcus leaned forward, his fingers flying across the controls as he pulled up new information. What is it? The reinforcement fleets are accelerating. They're not 18 hours away anymore. Marcus's face was grim as he processed the data. 6 hours, maybe 7. Sarah felt despair wash over her. So we've lost. Not yet. Marcus stood up and moved to a section of the bunker that Sarah hadn't noticed before. A row of sealed chambers lined the far wall, each one containing equipment that pulsed with soft light. There's one more option. Something we've been saving for exactly this situation. What is it? Marcus placed his hand on one of the chambers and it opened with a soft hiss. Inside was a suit that looked like it was made from liquid metal, flowing and shifting even while hanging motionless on its frame. Guardian combat armor. Full enhancement suite, integrated AI support and weapon systems that can level city blocks. Marcus looked at the armor with a mixture of respect and regret. Once you put it on, there's no going back. The enhancement process is irreversible. Enhancement process? The armor doesn't just protect you, Sarah, it changes you. Makes you faster, stronger, more resilient than any normal human could be. But it also makes you something that's not entirely human anymore. Sarah stared at the flowing metal. You want me to put that on? I want you to have the choice. The collective is winning because they have numbers and technology on their side. But they've never faced enhanced humans in large numbers. Most Guardians use limited enhancement gear that keeps them human. This is different. Another alarm began to sound, this one more urgent than the first. On the monitors, Sarah could see the reason. The orbital defense platforms were falling one by one, overwhelmed by the sheer number of collective ships. How many suits are there? She asked. 50, hidden in Guardian bunkers around the world. We call it the Omega Protocol. Sarah understood now why Marcus had looked so grim when he'd mentioned that term earlier. The Guardian Network's final option involved transforming their own people into something beyond human. If I do this, what happens to me? Marcus met her eyes and she saw the weight of years of preparation and sacrifice. You become humanity's best hope for survival, and you stop being the person you were before. Sarah stood before the flowing metal suit, her mind racing through the implications. Everything she'd learned about herself, about humanity, about the world around her had been turned upside down in the span of a few hours. Now she was being asked to make a choice that would determine not just her own fate, but potentially the fate of her entire species. What exactly would happen to me? She asked, reaching out to touch the armor's surface. It felt warm and somehow alive under her fingers. Marcus activated a display panel that showed detailed schematics of the human body overlaid with complex technical diagrams. The armor integrates with your nervous system, your circulatory system, even your skeletal structure. It enhances everything that makes you human while adding capabilities that no baseline human could possess, such as reaction times measured in milliseconds instead of seconds, strength enough to lift several tons, durability that can withstand direct energy weapon hits, enhanced sensory processing that lets you track multiple targets simultaneously. Marcus paused, and computational assistance that makes you capable of tactical planning at superhuman levels. Sarah studied the readouts, her engineering background helping her understand the technical specifications. The changes weren't just physical. The armor would fundamentally alter how her brain processed information, how her nervous system responded to stimuli, even how her body repaired itself from damage. You said it was irreversible. The integration process takes about 6 hours. Once it's complete, the armor becomes part of you. Removing it would be like trying to remove your skeleton. Marcus's voice was gentle but honest. You would gain incredible capabilities, but you would also lose the ability to live a normal human life. Another explosion shook the bunker, this one close enough to make the lights flicker. On the monitors, Sarah could see that the collective ground forces were advancing through the city above them. Buildings that had stood for decades were being systematically destroyed, and the few human resistance forces visible on the feeds were being overwhelmed. How many other people are making this same choice right now? Sarah asked. 49 others, assuming all the bunkers are still operational. Marcus pulled up a global map that showed the locations of Guardian installations. About half of them were still showing green status lights. The Omega Protocol was designed as a coordinated response. 50 enhanced Guardians, operating simultaneously around the world. Sarah looked at the tactical displays showing the scale of the invasion. Hundreds of alien ships, thousands of ground troops, and reinforcements on the way. 50 people against an entire invasion fleet? 50 people with capabilities that the collective has never encountered before. They've fought enhanced humans before, but not with this level of technology integration. The armor you'd be wearing represents 60 years of human technological advancement, specifically designed to counter collective advantages. The bunker's communication system crackled to life. All Guardian installations, this is command. Omega Protocol authorization is now active. Repeat, Omega Protocol is now active. All designated personnel are cleared for enhancement. Marcus looked at Sarah with an expression that mixed hope with sorrow. That's your authorization. If you're going to do this, it needs to be now. Sarah closed her eyes and tried to imagine her life if she survived the next few days. Would there be a world left to return to? Would there be anyone left who remembered the quiet engineer who had worked on quantum processors and worried about thermal dissipation rates? When she opened her eyes, Marcus was watching her with the patience of someone who understood the weight of impossible choices. If I do this, and somehow we win, what happens afterward? I don't know, Marcus admitted. The Guardian Network never planned for what comes after an open war with the collective. We were focused on preventing one, not winning one. Sarah moved closer to the armor, studying its flowing surface. Will I still be me? The core of who you are will remain. Your memories, your personality, your values. But the way you experience the world will be fundamentally different. You'll think faster, perceive more, be capable of things that would seem impossible now. Like you. Marcus nodded. Like me, but more so. My enhancements are limited compared to what that suit offers. I can still pass for human in most situations. You wouldn't be able to. The tactical displays updated again, showing that the first wave of reinforcement ships had somehow arrived early. The orbital battle was intensifying, and Earth's defensive platforms were being systematically destroyed. They're adapting faster than we predicted, Marcus observed. The collective is using some kind of enhanced jump technology to bring their reinforcements forward. Sarah made her decision. How do I put it on? Marcus activated a control sequence and the armor began to flow and shift, opening like a flower to reveal an interior that was clearly designed to accommodate a human body. Step into it. The armor will handle the rest. Sarah took a deep breath and stepped forward. The moment her feet touched the interior of the suit, she felt it begin to respond. The metal flowed up around her legs like liquid, but instead of feeling cold or foreign, it felt warm and welcoming. It doesn't hurt, she said with surprise. The integration process is designed to be as comfortable as possible. The armor uses advanced nanotechnology to interface with your nervous system without causing damage or pain. As the suit continued to envelop her, Sarah felt a strange tingling sensation spreading through her body. It wasn't unpleasant, but it was definitely noticeable. When the armor reached her torso, the sensation intensified, and she realized she could feel the suit making connections with her major organ systems. "How long does this take?" she asked, though she noticed her voice was already beginning to sound different, clearer, more resonant. "About 30 minutes for initial integration. Full enhancement takes 6 hours, but you'll be operational much sooner than that." The armor flowed over her shoulders and arms, and Sarah gasped as her sense of touch suddenly expanded. She could feel the air currents in the bunker, the vibrations from the explosions overhead, even the electromagnetic fields from the electronic equipment around them. When the suit reached her head, the world transformed. Information flooded her consciousness in streams that should have been overwhelming but somehow weren't. She could see tactical displays overlaid on her vision, showing the positions of collective forces throughout the city. She could hear radio communications from Guardian teams around the world, their voices mixing with updates from the orbital defense platforms. Most startling of all, she could feel the presence of the other Guardian bunkers, their enhanced occupants beginning to come online as they underwent the same transformation she was experiencing. "Sarah, can you hear me?" Marcus's voice reached her through both the air and direct neural interface. "I can hear everything," she said, marveling at the richness of information flowing through her enhanced senses. The other Guardians, the battle, even the collective communications. What are the collective saying? Sarah focused on the alien transmissions, and the armor's translation systems kicked in automatically. They're surprised. Something about unexpected enhancement signatures and escalated threat assessment. Marcus smiled grimly. "Good. We want them surprised." The armor completed its integration, and Sarah felt the final connections lock into place. The sensation was indescribable, like suddenly discovering she had senses she'd never known existed. She was still herself, still Sarah Chen the engineer, but she was also something more. "How do you feel?" Marcus asked. Sarah tested her enhanced capabilities, moving with speed that left afterimages in the air. "Like I could take on the world." "Good," Marcus said, moving toward another chamber that contained his own enhanced armor. "Because that's exactly what we're going to do." Marcus's transformation was faster than Sarah's had been, the armor flowing over his body with the smooth efficiency of something that had done this before. As the enhancement completed, Sarah could see his body language change, becoming more predatory and alert. When he turned to face her, his eyes held the same golden flecks she'd noticed earlier, but now they glowed with an inner light. "You've done this before," Sarah observed, her enhanced perception picking up subtle details about his posture and movement patterns. "Limited versions, yes, but nothing like this." Marcus flexed his hands, watching energy patterns dance along his fingertips. "The Omega armor is something we've never field tested. The simulations suggested it would work, but simulations and reality don't always align. Through their neural link to the Guardian network, information flowed between them without words. Sarah could feel the other enhanced Guardians coming online around the world, their enhanced capabilities adding to a growing pool of shared tactical awareness. It was like being part of a distributed intelligence that spanned the globe. 37 active, Sarah said, processing the network data. "We lost 13 bunkers. Better than I expected given the scope of the attack." Marcus moved to a weapons rack that contained devices that looked more like works of art than instruments of war. "The collective hit us hard, but they couldn't find all our installations." Sarah selected a weapon that felt right in her enhanced hands. It was sleek and organic looking, with surfaces that seemed to shift and flow like the armor itself. The moment she touched it, information about its capabilities flooded her consciousness. Plasma generation, kinetic amplification, electromagnetic pulse modes, and options she didn't even have names for. "What's our objective?" she asked, though part of her already knew the answer through the network connection. "Disrupt their coordination systems. The collective operates through hierarchical control structures. Take out enough of their command nodes and their forces become disorganized and vulnerable." A new display materialized in Sarah's enhanced vision, showing the city above them in three-dimensional detail. Collective forces were highlighted in red, their movement patterns and objectives clearly marked. She could see that they were establishing control points throughout the urban area, systematically converting human infrastructure to their own purposes. They're not just conquering, Sarah realized. They're preparing for long-term occupation. The collective doesn't leave worlds empty after harvesting them. They convert them into industrial centers for their expansion efforts. Marcus indicated a cluster of alien installations that were already taking shape in the downtown area. That complex is their primary coordination center for this continent. Through the network, Sarah could feel the other Guardian teams making their own assessments. Enhanced minds processed tactical information at superhuman speeds, developing coordinated strategies across multiple time zones and continents. It was like watching the birth of a collective intelligence designed for war. "We go up together," Sarah said, understanding their role in the global plan. "Hit their coordination center while teams in other cities target their own local command structures." "Exactly. The network gives us perfect coordination, but we still need to move fast. The collective learns quickly, and once they understand what they're facing, they'll adapt their tactics." They move toward the bunker's exit, their enhanced bodies flowing through the space with perfect efficiency. Sarah noticed that she no longer thought about how to move. The armor anticipated her intentions and optimized her motions automatically, making every step and gesture precise and purposeful. The staircase that had seemed long on the way down passed in moments as they ascended with superhuman speed. When they reached the parking garage level, the sounds of battle were much louder. The concrete walls couldn't muffle the intensity of what was happening in the streets above. "How do we get past their forces without being detected?" Sarah asked. Marcus smiled, and Sarah realized it was the first genuine expression of confidence she'd seen from him since the invasion began. "We don't hide from them. We announce ourselves." They emerged from the building into a war zone. The street was cratered from energy weapon impacts. Abandoned vehicles burned like funeral pyres, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with residual energy from the ongoing battle. Collective forces moved through the destruction with mechanical precision, their metallic forms reflecting the light from the fires around them. The moment Sarah and Marcus stepped into the open, every alien within visual range turned toward them, weapons charged with the distinctive whine of collective energy systems, and Sarah felt targeting sensors lock onto their position. Instead of fear, she felt a surge of anticipation that surprised her. The armor was feeding her tactical information faster than conscious thought, showing her the positions and capabilities of each enemy, calculating optimal attack patterns, predicting their responses before they made them. 37 targets, Sarah said, her enhanced senses cataloging every threat in their immediate vicinity. "I'll take the left flank," Marcus replied through their neural link. They moved as one, but in opposite directions, their enhanced speed making them appear as blurs of motion to the alien forces. Sarah's weapon discharged in patterns that painted the air with streams of coherent energy, each shot precisely targeted to exploit weaknesses in collective armor that her enhanced perception could see clearly. The aliens tried to track their movement, but their targeting systems weren't designed for opponents who could move faster than their sensors could follow. Sarah watched weapon fire pass harmlessly through spaces she had occupied milliseconds earlier, while her own attacks found their marks with perfect accuracy. In less than 30 seconds, the street was clear of hostile forces. "This feels too easy," Sarah said, though she was already processing tactical data that suggested their success was more significant than it appeared. "It is for now," Marcus agreed. "The collective forces we're fighting are occupation troops, not their elite units. But they're already adapting. Look at the deployment patterns 3 blocks north." Sarah expanded her sensor range and saw what Marcus meant. The collective forces in the distance were repositioning into formations specifically designed to counter fast-moving opponents. They were learning from the encounters with enhanced guardians around the world, sharing tactical information through their own version of a neural network. "They're regrouping around their command center," Sarah observed, "concentrating their forces, which makes our job both easier and harder. Easier because we know exactly where to go. Harder because they'll be ready for us." They began moving toward the downtown area, their enhanced capabilities allowing them to cover ground at speeds that would have been impossible for unenhanced humans. As they moved, Sarah could feel the broader battle raging around the world through her network connection. The other Guardian teams were engaging collective forces with varying degrees of success, but the overall tactical picture was still uncertain. "How are we doing globally?" she asked. Marcus processed the network data streams with the same superhuman speed she was developing. Mixed results. The enhanced capabilities are giving us advantages the collective didn't expect, but they're adapting faster than our projections suggested. Some teams are reporting that newer collective units are specifically designed to counter enhanced humans. They've fought enhanced humans before, apparently more recently than we realized. The network is picking up references to Guardian pattern enhancement in their communications. They know more about us than we thought they did. As they approached the collective command center, Sarah could see the true scale of what they were facing. The alien installation covered several city blocks, rising from the ruins of what had been the financial district like a metallic cancer. Energy patterns flowed across its surfaces in complex geometries, and the air around it hummed with power that made her enhanced senses ache. That's not just a command center, Sarah realized as her tactical analysis systems processed what they were seeing. It's a gateway. Marcus confirmed her assessment with grim understanding. They're not just coordinating the invasion from here. They're bringing through reinforcements directly from collective space. Through the network, urgent priority updates from other Guardian teams confirmed the same pattern at command centers around the world. The invasion was entering a new phase, with the collective preparing to escalate their assault beyond anything they had deployed so far. We need to take that down before whatever's coming through that gateway arrives, Sarah said. Agreed, but we're going to have company. Sarah followed his gaze and saw them coming. Collective forces unlike anything they had encountered before, moving with purpose and coordination that suggested they were specifically designed to hunt enhanced humans. Their metallic forms were sleeker and more predatory than the occupation troops, and the energy signatures they radiated made her armor's threat assessment systems flash urgent warnings. Elite units, Marcus confirmed. They've been saving them for us. The collective elite units moved like liquid death through the ruined streets, their forms shifting and adapting as they approached. Sarah's enhanced senses tracked 12 distinct targets, each one radiating energy signatures that suggested capabilities far beyond the occupation forces they had fought earlier. They're designed specifically to counter our enhancement patterns, Sarah observed, her tactical analysis systems processing the aliens' approach vectors. Look at their movement algorithms. They're predicting our possible positions before we move to them. Then we don't move where they expect us to, Marcus replied through their neural link. Instead of engaging the elite units directly, they split apart and began moving in patterns that defied conventional tactical logic. Sarah found herself thinking in 3 dimensions, using the damaged buildings around them as both cover and launching points for attacks that came from angles the collective forces couldn't predict. Her weapon discharged in rapid sequence, sending streams of plasma that bent through the air following trajectories that seemed to violate physics. The shot struck 2 of the elite units from directions they hadn't been scanning, but instead of falling like the occupation troops, these enemies absorbed the impacts and continued advancing. Energy resistant, Marcus reported, his own attacks similarly ineffective against the alien armor. We need a different approach. Sarah's enhanced mind processed combat data from Guardian teams around the world, looking for successful tactics against similar enemies. What she found wasn't encouraging. The elite units had been deployed in response to enhanced Guardian activities, and they were proving remarkably effective. But as she analyzed the engagement reports, Sarah noticed something that the combat AIs hadn't flagged. The elite units were incredibly effective against enhanced humans using individual tactics, but they seemed to have trouble responding to coordinated attacks that exploited their adaptive algorithms. Marcus, they're processing our attack patterns individually, she said, sharing her analysis through their link. But what if we attack in ways that require them to process contradictory adaptive responses simultaneously? Confusion cascade? Exactly. Their adaptation systems are probably designed to optimize responses to single threats. Hit them with multiple contradictory threat profiles at once, and they might lock up while trying to adapt to everything simultaneously. They began moving in concert, their enhanced capabilities allowing them to execute a combat strategy that would have been impossible for unenhanced humans. Sarah attacked with high-velocity kinetic rounds while Marcus used energy weapons, forcing the elite units to adapt their defenses to 2 completely different threat types. Then they switched, Sarah using energy weapons while Marcus employed kinetic attacks. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The elite units began moving erratically, their adaptive systems struggling to optimize for threats that kept changing in fundamental ways. Two of them actually collided with each other as their movement algorithms produced contradictory navigation commands. "It's working," Marcus said with satisfaction. "But they're learning from this too. We've got maybe 2 minutes before they adapt to our adaptation strategy." Through the network, Sarah shared their successful tactic with Guardian teams around the world. Within seconds, reports began flowing back of similar successes against elite units in other cities. But she could also see that the collective was responding with typical efficiency, already beginning to deploy countermeasures. "We need to reach that command center now," Sarah said, identifying the optimal route through the elite forces. Before they bring through whatever's waiting on the other side of that gateway, they fought their way through the remaining elite units with ruthless efficiency, their enhanced capabilities and coordinated tactics allowing them to overcome enemies that should have been superior in every way. But Sarah could feel the cost of the engagement. The armor's energy reserves were depleting faster than expected, and she realized that extended combat against elite-level opponents was pushing the enhancement systems beyond their optimal parameters. When they finally reached the perimeter of the collective command center, Sarah understood why the aliens had been so confident in their invasion plans. The installation wasn't just large and well defended. It was actively reshaping the surrounding area, converting human architecture into something that served collective purposes. Streets were being torn up and reformed into geometric patterns that channeled energy flows, while buildings were being systematically dismantled and rebuilt according to alien specifications. "They're not just occupying our world," Sarah realized. "They're transforming it into something that can support their civilization. Which is why we have to stop them here," Marcus said. "If this installation becomes fully operational, they'll be able to convert the entire continent within weeks." The gateway at the center of the installation pulsed with energy that made reality itself seem unstable around it. Through her enhanced senses, Sarah could perceive something vast and hostile pressing against the dimensional barrier, waiting to emerge into Earth's reality. "What's coming through?" she asked, though part of her already suspected the answer. Marcus's enhanced perception was analyzing the same energy signatures. "Collective world ship. A mobile planetary processing facility. If that gets through, the invasion becomes a conversion operation." Sarah understood the implications immediately. World ships were legendary among spacefaring species. Massive installations capable of dismantling entire worlds and converting them into resources for further expansion. If the collective succeeded in bringing one through their gateway, Earth wouldn't just be conquered. It would be completely transformed into an alien construct. "How do we stop it?" she asked. "Overload the gateway. Force a dimensional collapse that will sever their connection to collective space." "And how do we do that?" Marcus indicated the energy patterns flowing throughout the installation. "The gateway draws power from a network of control nodes positioned around the perimeter. Take out enough of them simultaneously, and the power feedback should cause a cascade failure." Sarah counted the nodes with her enhanced vision. 14 primary nodes, each one heavily defended. "We can't hit them all simultaneously." "We don't have to," Marcus said, sharing a new tactical analysis through their link. "The network structure has built-in redundancies, but there are also potential vulnerabilities. Hit the right sequence of nodes and we can cause a resonance failure that will propagate through the entire system." Through the Guardian network, they coordinated with the surviving enhanced teams around the world. Similar installations were being established at other gateway sites, and the same tactic could potentially work at multiple locations simultaneously. Global coordination required, Sarah realized. "We need to time this perfectly with similar operations on other continents." "Already in progress," Marcus confirmed. Guardian teams in London, Tokyo, and Sao Paulo are in position to execute synchronized gateway disruption operations. They began their approach to the first target node, moving with the careful precision of people who understood that failure meant not just their own deaths, but the end of human civilization as it had existed for millennia. The defenses around the node were unlike anything they had faced before. Instead of mobile units, the collective had deployed static installations that channeled the same energy used to power the gateway. The air around the node shimmered with barely contained force that would have been instantly lethal to unenhanced humans. Sarah's armor adapted to the energy field, its defensive systems reconfiguring to provide protection against exotic radiation that her sensors couldn't even properly classify. She moved through the field like she was walking through thick water, each step requiring concentrated effort as her enhancement systems worked to maintain her integrity against forces that wanted to unmake her on a molecular level. Energy pattern destabilizing, Marcus warned through their link. The gateway is beginning the final phase of its activation sequence. Above them, the sky itself began to tear. Reality split along geometric lines that hurt to look at, revealing glimpses of the world ship waiting beyond. Sarah caught sight of structures that dwarfed anything humans had ever built, their surfaces covered with the geometric patterns that seemed to be fundamental to collective technology. "Time's up," she said, reaching the first node. Her weapon discharged directly into its core, sending feedback cascades through the energy network that connected all the gateway systems. Around the world, other Guardian teams executed their own attacks with perfect synchronization. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The gateway installation began to collapse in on itself, its energy patterns becoming chaotic and unstable. But the world ship was already partially through the dimensional barrier. As the gateway failed, Sarah could see massive structures beginning to emerge into Earth's reality, their alien geometry imposing itself on the space around them like a virus converting healthy tissue. "It's not enough," Marcus said, his enhanced systems analyzing the collapse rate versus the emergence rate. "Part of the world ship is going to make it through before the gateway fully fails."